Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Welcome back to my channel. This week we are taking on part 2 of my Kendra's card challenge number 9. This week I'm going to be working on sketches 8 through 15 and we are going to get all 8 cards done in less than 90 minutes, which is really less than like 25 minutes for you guys. It was just about 90 minutes for me. I think it was like an hour and 28 maybe. So this was really fun. For all of these, I kind of sped through the base layer part because they're pretty similar. I did have a couple pieces of my cardstock left over from last time. I cut my E and F panels from the same pattern paper, and I will leave the part 1 of this video in the description down below in case you missed it. So the way this works, Kendra's card challenge, is you take 6 different 6x6 pattern paper sheets, cut them all up, and use a couple different base colors of cardstock as well. And then from that, you get 15 card sketches that all flow together and all work together really well. So I pulled all of my pattern papers from the World to Me pattern paper pack from Pink and Maine. Try to say that 3 times fast. And I just love how bright and sunny these colors are, and all 15 of my cards are either a beautiful, like any occasion card or birthday card. That's just the theme I went with. Before we jump into more details, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any crafty inspiration. I come back here every Friday and sometimes on Tuesdays, and I just love the little card community that we are growing over here, and I appreciate you guys so much. So that was already sketch number 8 done that quick. So I'm moving on to the next one now. For my base layers, I accidentally bought a pack of just white note cards. Like, they don't have a fold to them. They're A2 sized, just flat pieces of cardstock. So I'm trying to use those up with this. That's the white layer I'm using. And then my craft is Neenah Desert Storm. I had a bunch that I found in my stash, and so I just decided to use that for my craft. And then, like I said, all of my pattern paper is from Pink and Maine. So you're gonna see for a lot of these ones, we're starting off with layers of the white and the craft. You could also bring in any other colors for this or add in a third color. It didn't have to be white on the bottom and then the craft in more white. It could have been different colors throughout. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you have in your supply that you need to start working through, so that you can make room to go get more cardstock, obviously. That is what I would recommend. For this one, I'm pretty sure we had that, I think it's a 2-ish inch square. I'm putting that down. I love the stripe and this dot together. It's so cute. I'm just going through and making my card bases to start with. And this is when I realized that I did that first sketch wrong. That big piece of teal was supposed to go underneath solid, and then the strips were supposed to go separately onto other cards. So I made it work. I went back and just added one of that piece I have left in my hand. I put it back in there and just added the other squares back on top. And it all worked out fine, but definitely make sure you're reading the dimensions when you're putting these together. I thought that I could just kind of go off memory on some of these. But either way, even if you make a little mistake like that, don't even think of it as a mistake. It's just your interpretation of the sketch, and that's also completely fine. So if you are new to Kendra's card challenges, she made all of these sketches, she puts them out, and then there's brand sponsors and prizes because it is a challenge. And so there's a Facebook page that you can upload all of your images to. Either for individual card sketches, or I even think for like the full, if you do all 15, and there's different prizes based on different criteria. So in the description here, I've left links for all of the instructions, all of the prizes. And this is the last month for this sketch challenge. This is number 9. So you have until the end of March if you decide that you want to enter. But then the most exciting part is this is a quarterly challenge. So starting in April, we're going to have a whole nother one with 3 months to tackle. So I am on the design team for Kendra's Card Challenge. And so I will be posting for the next one, the sketch challenge number 10. I already got a sneak peek. It is chef's kiss perfection. Really cute sketches coming for this one. I'm so excited. And she blows my mind because she's already 10 in, right? That's 150 sketches and they still all look different. None of them are super complicated. None of them are hard to make, but they're still different. I don't understand how that my brain does not work that way. So I feel very grateful that Kendra's does, because this is definitely something that I think is perfect if you need to add in some inspiration to your card making, if you feel like you've been in a rut, if you want to craft but you sit down and you don't know where to start. This is an amazing resource to have to pull out and get some inspiration and some ideas brewing with. So I really love how this card turns out, this sketch with the 2 different stripes, and I'm going to bring in that Simon Says Stamp etched butterfly. It's going to be good. I set that to the side. Like I said, I'm making all of my card bases first, and then I will go back and show you all of the process for finishing each card and what little elements I added. So that's the other fun thing about this kind of challenge is you can just do the pattern paper and sentiments. You could do the pattern paper and ephemera or stickers or some other type of embellishment. You could use die cuts for your shapes. You could use stamped images to go into your shapes and Copic color. You could watercolor. You could emboss. You could foil. The options here are endless, but also you can do whatever makes you happy in that moment. So if what's safe to you, what feels comfortable in that moment is just using bigger sentiments, stamping them out and cutting them and putting them in those bigger kind of featured areas, and that's what makes you happy in that moment, that's what you need, go for it, because they're going to be beautiful. But if you're also feeling in that moment like you just really want to color, but you don't want to tackle a whole scene, you just want to color one little character, go for it, because it's going to look adorable. I kind of did a mixture. I did some die cuts, some coloring. This one I definitely think I kept a little more simple than the last one, but I do think they look pretty similar. They definitely go together as a full set, and I will be posting pictures of all 15. I'll figure out how to fit them all onto one picture. That'll be over on my Instagram if you want to go take a look at that. That's always linked down in the description below for you. We have an even bigger community over there. I'm up over 4,000 followers on Instagram. So if you follow me on both, thank you. And if you are over here hanging out but you haven't checked me out on Instagram, I would love it if you'd go take a peek. I post over there constantly, pretty much every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. So if you want more up-to-date things of what I'm working on, that is definitely the place to go see it all. So yet again, another card base with the white craft white layers, and then going in and adding these stripes, using a lot of liquid glue because I tried using a tape runner on these, and the very first panel that I set down was crooked and I couldn't adjust it, and I ended up tearing my paper. And so from that point on, I was liquid glue pretty much exclusively for the rest of this card set. And I do want to tell you, I filmed this video in 2 nights. So again, even though I got all of these done in less than an hour and a half, I didn't have an hour and a half to give at once, and it still worked out perfectly. So I split this into 2 sittings. I did 45 minutes to make all my card bases, and then 45 minutes to add all of my characters and embellishments, and I knocked it out. So you could absolutely break it up. You could break it down even smaller sections if you wanted to, and just do your coloring separately and then adhere your images on later, or all of your stamping at once and then come back to it. I love that about these. And you've seen even the 2 sections I've broken this up into were a month apart, and I was still fine. I just made sure that I kept my leftover pattern paper safe tucked it to the side, left it labeled so I knew which colors went with which letters to make sure that when I went back into my sketches that I knew what needed to go where, and it was perfect. So 15 can feel like a lot, but it really doesn't need to be overwhelming if you don't want it to be. And you don't have to feel like you need 3 hours to dedicate to just sitting down and only making those cards. But also, if something's come up and you have a free 3 hours and you're like, I would love to make 15 cards and just have them ready to go and ready to mail out, at least you know that this also exists for you as an option. These last ones that have this bigger like diagonal chunk of pattern paper really intrigued me because so what I ended up doing was the white part for these two I didn't do with my regular white cardstock. I actually used my Copic Express-It paper, which is what I usually do my alcohol ink coloring onto. That's what I made that bigger panel out of, and so that way I could stamp right onto these, and this would be a really fun way to incorporate like a mini scene into your card too. I've never thought about, you know, doing like a partial scene and partial pattern paper, but this is definitely a sketch that I'm gonna want to add into not my routine, but like my arsenal of what I pull from. And then this one I added in that buttery yellow instead of craft because I still had it sitting over there to the side and it matched pretty well to my pattern papers, but I just couldn't figure out when I wanted to use it. So please excuse my camera trying to autofocus and doing a terrible job. It's never done this before. I've had it for a couple months now, and this is the first time I've ever had it going in and out of focus like this. So I tried to trim it out as much as I could. I apologize if it triggers anybody seeing it blurry like that, but hopefully I can figure something out so it doesn't do this moving forward. For that second little strip, I just did a matching yellow, and then now is when we're going to go back in and start completing all of the cards. So for this first one, I grabbed the Merwees from Sweet November Stamps, and I did this little one that's hugging this cute little fish. I did my kind of standard Caucasian skin tone for her, going in with my light E markers, and then I made the fish into like a little goldfish, and I tried to pull in colors from the pattern paper for the rest of her. So her tail is some RVs that kind of coordinate with that little bit of pink over on the side, and this is that panel that I messed up and went back in and added that teal strip back into, and you can kind of see once you know what you're looking for, but I feel like I matched up that pattern pretty good. I really don't think that it's a big enough issue to not send it out or anything like that. So I added her in, and this one I didn't put a sentiment on just because it's going to let me kind of have a little more versatility in what I end up using it for. But for all the other ones, I did add a sentiment. So this is the one that's getting that etched butterfly, and so I die cut that from that same buttery yellow that I was using as a layering cardstock. And then I went in with my 100 black Copic marker, and I'm shading around all of those etched and embossed lines that go into the die cut and just kind of giving them a little bit more definition. And then I'm also going to go in and add some dotting to them just to break up that color a little bit, and I think it gives it a little more of a realistic look. I love that this kind of gives that idea of a monarch even though it's not orange, and it really pops with all of the other patterns and colors and stripes of this sketch specifically. I really like how it ended up working out. So for this die, I have used it a bunch in the past. It's one of my favorites. I'm just going in with my liquid glue, layering all 3 of those layers up, and then I'm going to hold everything in place with some reverse tweezers. Just giving it, you don't even need a full minute for it to get dry enough that you're good to go. And then adding some liquid glue to the back and just adhering it right in between. This is one of the sketches where you could put any shape there, it says. And so instead of just doing a regular shaped die cut, like wafer die, I decided to go for something a little different with my little butterfly. So for this one that has that diamond almost square, the one that's tilted up on its side, I decided to color in Little Sage. This is a tiny little birthday mouse from Purple Onion Designs. It's a red rubber stamp that I just stamped out onto my Copic paper. I colored her in, gave her a little yellow present and hat with a little teal pom-pom to match my cardstocks. Fussy cut that out and added a sentiment from Pink and Main Stamps that's sending sunshine and smiles. And then I went back in with these enamel dots to put in the 3 little embellishments that are marked on the sketch. I think enamel dots and sequins are a great way to embellish these, and because they're right in the sketch, I don't have to worry about where they go. Because if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I can mess around with where my sequin placement is for a while. So for this one, I stamped out the Together is My Favorite Place to Be. This is a stamp set that was a gift with purchase from Lawn Fawn on their most recent release, which usually means that it'll be available for sale with their next release. So if you didn't snag it this time, don't worry, they usually add them into the store after. But I shaded up those 2 sweet little kittens and added them to the center circle. For this one, I went with the Penguins in Paradise from My Favorite Things stamps and stamped out the Let's Chill on my little banner. And I just cut that notch in with my scissors. I added in a little frame from Pink and Main Stamps as well. That's the craft frame. And then for the inside of the picture frame is going to be this sweet little penguin. I colored him up like a normal penguin and then added in some teal shorts and used the same pink shades that I used on my mermaid earlier to shade in his popsicle, just again to kind of keep my color scheme as limited as I could and keep it so that everything looked really cohesive and went together really naturally. It also just made everything go a lot faster because I wasn't having to color match or worry about exactly what colors to pick. I just kind of limited myself to keep me on track a little bit. So once he was all shaded in, I added some foam strip tape to the center part of my frame just to pop him up and give him a little dimension. Oh, he's so stinking cute. So for this one, I decided to bring in one more Sweet November Stamps. This is the Baby Abominable. I'm going to color him up more like a Bigfoot than a Abominable Snowman. And so I went in with my E40 markers, and I'm going to keep those out. These are the same markers I used on my little mouse earlier, and I'm also going to use them for my bear and a dog that are coming up next. So again, there you go, trying to keep my color palette limited. I just went in to kind of emphasize his shaggy hair and then added some just very general shading to the rest of his body. I did want to keep his face and his feet a little bit lighter, so I just used my E43 and 41 markers on the face just to help them kind of stand out and have a little bit of more contrast between his face and the rest of his body. And then of course, because he's a Bigfoot, we needed to emphasize those pads on his feet that would leave his very recognizable Bigfoot tracks. So there he's done, and I stamped one of the sentiments from that set with teal ink to match my pattern paper. For this one, I brought in the Hoppy Easter stamp set from Possum Stamps, and I just took one of those full stick post-it notes that I love so much, and I used that to mask the yellow strip so that I could stamp, and the pattern paper underneath it, so that I could stamp my bear there at an angle, and that worked out perfectly. So that's a good one to keep in mind if you do decide you want to turn this into more of a scene and you have already adhered everything together. This was pretty easy to just mask up and stamp around. I'm going back in with those same E40 markers, but this is the moment that I realized my E42, was starting to die. No, I said it right the first time. My E43 is starting to die. It needs to be refilled. So I had to go in with extra E42 to smooth everything out. I added a little highlight to his eyes and a little soft pink to his ears and nose. Then I grabbed the small script dies from Simon Says stamp and added this hay to the little square on the side. And I like to use little strips of paper to help make sure all of my layers look nice and flat. Anytime you're going over layered cardstock, it can kind of create a bump in your top layer. So that's my workaround for that. And then for this last card, this is one of my favorites. This is one of the Oddball Pets from Stamping Bella. And I added just a little positive vibes in that same teal ink from My Favorite Things down in the corner. That's the one I've been using for all of the ones that have a colored sentiment. And I use those same E40 markers, like I said, on the little dog, just shading him in. His expression, just for all the oddballs, they just crack me up. They're so cute. And I love how these smaller images are really easy and quick to color, but they really give a good impact because they're so cute. They really can stand on their own. So like I said, if you want to make a whole scene on this little rectangle, you totally could. Or you can just focus on one character and kind of let it shine and be the star of your project. So I added him onto the front with some liquid glue, and you can see I had to do some adjusting. So definitely lean into the liquid glue for this kind of project where you want to make sure everything is lined up really nicely. And I brought in those enamel dots one more time, this time mixing up the colors a little bit. I think it ties in again really so nicely with my pattern paper. And that is all 8 cards. Can you believe that? It went even faster than I thought it was going to. In the moment, it feels like you're doing so much, but once you see them all laid out, they're absolutely beautiful together. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's all me, but the sketches just work so well together, and it really would make an amazing gift even to give somebody as this like curated set of either all 15 or splitting them up and giving them to 2 people. And I definitely can't wait to make these for some more of the holidays coming up. Not even just like the winter holidays, but any of them. So if you haven't already, make sure you go down and check those links in the description so you can find out all the information on Kendra's card challenge. I hope that you're feeling super inspired by how many cards I was able to make in my hour-and-a-half time frame. I hope that you have the most amazing week. I will see you back here next Tuesday for a bonus video. And yeah, thanks for coming to hang out with me. Have a great week. And as always, happy crafting.